Hi and welcome to a Siemens Partner Podcast, Episode 3, a podcast for partners to give some insight and perspective and dive into the world of Siemens. We'll be discussing various issues, challenges and gaining insight from our esteemed guests. So let's get going. Today's guest is Keith Thornhill, Head of Siemens Food and Beverage Team covering United Kingdom and Ireland. So welcome, Keith, to the Siemens Partner Podcast.
Thank you, Mark.
Good. So, are you well, sir?
I am indeed, yes. Yes, I always find it quite comical when you introduce me as the food and beverage, head of food and beverage, because people think I'm involved with catering and the restaurant rather than the actual automation side, but I'll take it anyway.
So you didn't bring any cakes today?
Sorry, no freebies.
Oh dear, that's not good. To get things going, I ask all my guests this question. You're hosting a dinner party for 5 people. You're one of them. There's 4 other people that you can invite. They can be either dead or alive, but they must be famous. So who would you invite, sir?
Wow. It's a nice, easy one to start off with. Well, I'm heavily into sport.
Yeah.
So, as always, I think Muhammad Ali sort of comes up with a lot of those of my sort of generation. So he'd be an interesting character to have at the table.
Yeah.
Kevin Keegan, I think when I was growing up, he was my sort of idol in terms of football. From a cricket perspective, probably a bit more recent one, a bit of a Freddie Flintstone.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of music, perhaps a bit of Phil Collins as well. That'd be an interesting one.
So it's quite sort of modern-ish era, should I say?
Yeah. As modern as it's going to get for me, that's for sure.
That's fine, that's good. It's all, it's very sporty and musical. So that must sum yourself up, really, is it?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Excellent. Right. Okay. So there's a few areas I wish to cover today in the time we have. And the first one is, what are the challenges for the food and drink manufacturing?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's clearly lots and lots. I mean, the food industry is a very, in general, low margin sector. And so it doesn't take an awful lot to disrupt it. Clearly, we've all been disrupted over the last few years regarding whether it's Brexit, COVID, and now the war in Ukraine, which impacts us all. But food and drink is at the centre of all of that, and increasing cost has an impact on us as consumers. So, how do they go about trying to get through those really cost-driven challenges? It's very, very difficult. You then put a layer of the consumer preferences. So that could just be, we decided we're not going to go to our normal superstore. We're going to go to a different one, different brands, which means that the volumes stay pretty well the same across the whole sector, but the choice changes. So you tend to go for the cheaper version. That clearly has an impact on how they manage their manufacturing. And then you've got the more trendy types of scenarios with the free from or veganism. If it's a medical reason why you need to do something that's clearly different, but there's ethical reasons why people decide what they want to do, and all this has a challenge on manufacturing. Environmental impacts around sustainability. Net zero. Big topics that we have with a lot of our customers of how they're going to reduce their carbon, reduce their plastics, reduce their water usage. So doing more with less is a big topic that we have with many of our customers. So these are the sort of things that are really having an impact on and the challenges that these guys have. Transparency across the supply chain. Mm-hmm. If you want to make sure that your label's correct, do you really know what the ingredients coming into the factory? Can they validate it? Can they verify that? Is another area where their concerns. And the good old that we all suffer from is skills, having the ability to get the right skills in the businesses. The food and drink industry in general has relied an awful lot on low-cost labour availability. Mm-hmm. Clearly that has come to a bit of an end. But they have to sort of work out how they're going to go about that. Clearly that then now opens it up for more automation. But it's in an area where the culture of the business is sweat the assets, do as much as you can with what you've got, and somehow get through the other end. I mean, that's how they operate in general. So culture is an important thing as well. But all of this, and throw cyber into that, legislation, all these challenges, are cost pressures. And that's where the industry is at the moment. And so most of our discussions currently is around how do we reduce cost, how do we become more efficient, and if we can tag we've reduced carbon in that, then that clearly ticks a lot of boxes.
You don't realise until you ask that question how many challenges there is within the industry at the moment, do you?
No, and it all has a knock-on effect as us as consumers.
Yes.
You know, we've all got an interest in food.
Yes.
You know, so we have to survive, of course. but that's the thing with the food and drink industry, that everybody's got an opinion of it, and don't really know what's involved in a lot of instances to get it to the supermarket. But clearly, we're in the industry, so we recognise that. But yeah, no, absolutely. There's so many things that can really impact a business that with tight margins could quite easily take companies out.
Yeah,
these challenges.
Right. Okay. So that sort of leads on to my next sort of question. What does the opportunity for Siemens and its partners look like then with all these challenges?
Well, a lot of the solutions to this, and you know, coming from a technology company, clearly you'd like to think, well, yeah, cool, it's just throw technology at it. But there's an awful lot of areas where the culture is the big part of that, and so people is a really important part of how we deliver that. And that's why sometimes just taking these companies to Congleton, where you see the culture of that business and how it managed to sort of turn itself around because it had to. Pretty much that was it had to be that. It has to be performing across other Congleton manufacturing plants across the globe. So there's a real need, a burning platform to do that. But seeing how they got through that culture piece is really, really important. And that's what, clearly there's a lot of tech in Congleton as well, but it's the culture thing I think a lot of companies get out of that, and how that company can turn it around, and how the business really fights and buys into the change that's required. But the opportunity in the food industry, clearly from we're all in business to try and get more business. We want to grow significantly in the sector. There's probably about 7,000 food companies in the UK that probably put stuff on supermarket shelves. We have a focus team, a sales team in the UK and Ireland, focusing on probably about 50, 60 companies. Out of those 50, 60 companies, that probably represents about 200 odd physical sites, maybe more, because a lot of these sites are, a lot of these companies are multi-sited. We then have a regional team that are also looking after companies like Sandwith Brothers or Warburton's or Premier Foods and things like that. Yeah, all sort of working in that. So you can start to see how the size of the prize, all of them got those challenges that I've just indicated, all of them looking at ways to sort of solve that. And so what we want our partner network to do in collaboration with ourselves is to how do we get more around this pie and start to actually put some real good technology in there to make a real business benefit. It's the key thing, is the business benefit, which helps to change the culture, but also gets the automation and the digitalization into these factories.
Right, okay. So when we look at this as well then, you said earlier about culture and investment has often been a challenge in the food manufacturing. So what do you reckon will be different with this then? Yeah,
investment, like I said earlier, is one of those sort of areas where historically it's very CapEx orientated. We've all been down the road of they need to spend the capital before they lose it. And we suddenly get a bit of a nice kick towards the end of their financial years when they need to spend their budget. And we're reacting and responding to their requirements, really. I think with the new methodology in terms of technology and how it can give us far more insight, with more challenger approach to sales, you can start to be ahead of the curve in all of that, to identify new opportunities before they know there's an opportunity to improve their business. And because we can do that, we can then start to think about how do we then wrap a finance package around that, or how do we do it an as a service offering with the partners in the loop on all of that. And I really believe that with Siemens Financial Services embedded in a lot of this solution, where we can really articulate the return on investment, that's where you suddenly start to get more and more projects going through that we're really in control of and driving right through the supply chain, as opposed to the traditional method where we get told, can you quote against this?
Yeah.
And then we react and respond. And clearly that's like 90% of what we do currently.
Yeah.
But I think if we can think about that Siemens Financial Service offering at the front end, I think that's when we can start to say, negate the idea that we've got to see if we can get it on the CapEx run this year, because we can put it into some sort of operational benefit business case and they can get the benefit on day one. So I think using our financial services model more and more will start to accelerate the more and more technology going into companies.
Would you say our financial services are one of our sort of best kept secrets?
Possibly. I mean, we did a campaign together focused on bakery and confectionery 2 years ago. So we did quite a lot of promotion on how this could all work. I guess people think finance and go, oh yeah, no, we'll do it on capital because it's cheaper. Again, the culture of the business is very much like that. If you go to automotive, they lease equipment.
Yeah.
And there's no problem with that. In the food industry, they don't lease equipment, really. They might lease some forklift trucks, but they don't lease automation.
No.
And so there's an element of, well, how do we make more of that? But I agree. I think sometimes we grow through whatever happens in front of us. And I think with Siemens Financial Services, yes, we probably need to be a bit more understanding of what it means. But I think where we need to be a bit better is articulating what the return on investment is, what the business case is, and then wrapping the finance around it, rather than here's a pile of products. Oh, we might have a financial offer here, but let's think we can wrap it all together in one offer. I think that will start to make some significant improvements.
Right. Okay. So what I'd like to do, Keith, is just leave it there. We'll take a quick break. That's been quite a lot to digest in the first part of this episode. So we'll be back very shortly. Thank you.
Thank you.